The text message wasn't even meant for me. That's the part that still gets me. 3 years of lies unraveled because my wife Ashley sent a message to our family group chat instead of her lover. One misplaced thumb tap, and the entire foundation of my 12-year marriage crumbled like wet cardboard. Can't wait to feel you inside me again tonight. Greg's working late at the hospital, so we have until at least 2 a.m. I was standing in the middle of the surgical prep room at Denver General, my hands already scrubbed, when my Apple Watch buzzed. The message appeared right there on my wrist, sent to Family Fun, the group chat that included me, Ashley, and our 2 kids, Emma and Tyler. My hands started shaking. Dr. Patricia Williams, the anesthesiologist, noticed immediately. "Greg, you all right?" I wasn't all right. I was 41 years old, a respected cardiovascular surgeon, father of 2 beautiful children, and apparently the last person in my own life to know I was being played for a fool. "I need 5 minutes," I managed to say, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. I walked out of prep, leaving a confused surgical team behind me. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. The message was still there, sitting innocently between Emma's soccer practice reminder and Tyler's request for pizza money. My wife of 12 years. The woman I'd met during my residency at Johns Hopkins. The woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd given birth to our children, who'd kissed me goodbye that very morning with a smile that I'd thought was genuine. 3 dots appeared. She was typing. Then the message disappeared from the chat entirely. She'd deleted it. 30 seconds later, my phone rang. Ashley. I stared at her name on the screen, her profile picture smiling back at me. A photo from our vacation to Maui last summer. We'd been so happy. Or at least, I'd thought we were happy. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened our phone records. We had a shared family plan through Verizon. I'd set it up years ago and never thought twice about it. I logged into the account using my administrator access, something I'd never done before because I'd trusted my wife completely. The call logs loaded slowly, each second feeling like an hour. There it was. A number I didn't recognize, appearing over and over again. Multiple calls per day, some lasting over an hour. The pattern went back months. No, I scrolled further. It went back over a year. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ashley, this one clearly meant for me. "Greg, I'm so sorry. That message was a joke from my book club. We're reading this romance novel and I was being silly. Please call me." A joke. She was actually going to try that. I took a screenshot of everything. The original message, the call logs, all of it. Then I forwarded it to my personal email, the one she didn't have access to. My phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Williams. "Greg, we need you. The patient is prepped and ready." "Right?" "Mr. Johnson, 63 years old, triple bypass. A man whose life depended on me having steady hands and a clear head." I took 3 deep breaths, the way I'd learned in medical school. Compartmentalize. Focus. There's a time for everything, and right now, a man's life was more important than my disintegrating marriage. "I'm coming," I said. The surgery took 4 hours. 4 hours where I couldn't think about Ashley, couldn't think about the stranger she'd been sleeping with, couldn't think about how many times she'd lied to my face. For 4 hours, all that existed was the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the careful precision of each suture, the delicate dance of keeping a human heart alive while repairing it. When it was over, Mr. Johnson was stable and headed to recovery. Dr. Williams caught my arm as I was leaving the OR. "Whatever happened before," she said quietly, "you handled it like a professional. But you're also human, Greg. If you need anything, I'm fine, I lied. It was 11 p.m. when I finally left the hospital. I sat in my Tesla in the parking garage, the silence pressing down on me like a physical weight. 47 missed calls from Ashley. 23 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. The most recent one read, "Please, Greg, just come home. Let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you." I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the Hilton downtown and checked into a room. The clerk, a young guy named Brandon, gave me a curious look. I was still in my scrubs, probably looking like I'd been through a war. "Rough shift?" he asked sympathetically. "You have no idea," I muttered. Once in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself process what had happened. My wife was having an affair. Not a one-time mistake, not a drunken kiss at a party, a full-blown year-long affair with someone whose name I didn't even know yet. But I would find out. And when I did, I was going to make sure that both of them understood exactly what they'd destroyed. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ashley. "I know you're seeing these. Please. The kids are asking where you are." The kids. Emma was 10, Tyler was 7. They were asleep in their beds right now, innocent and unaware that their family was falling apart. That's when the shock began to crystallize into something else. Something cold and focused. Ashley wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd just challenged someone who'd spent 12 years in medical training, learning how to stay calm under pressure, how to think strategically, and how to never, ever make a mistake when the stakes were high. And the stakes had never been higher. I sat in that hotel room until morning, watching the city lights blur into dawn. My phone had gone mercifully silent around 2 a.m. I'd spent the hours doing what I do best, methodical analysis. The phone records painted a clear picture. 347 calls over 13 months to the same number. The pattern was deliberate, careful. Calls placed during my surgeries, my conferences, my nights on call. At 6:30, I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks from our house and parked where I could see our driveway. Ashley's Honda CR-V sat in its usual spot. The porch light was still on. She'd left it burning all night, probably hoping I'd come home. I watched Emma and Tyler pile into the car at 7:40, backpacks bouncing. Ashley looked haggard even from this distance, her hair in a messy ponytail instead of her usual careful styling. After they pulled away, I waited 15 minutes, then used my key. The house smelled like home. Coffee, the vanilla candles Ashley loved, Tyler's soccer cleats by the door. I moved quickly to her home office, the small converted bedroom where she kept her business files. Ashley ran her own fire safety consulting firm, inspecting commercial buildings for code compliance. Successful enough that she'd hired 2 employees last year. Her filing cabinet wasn't locked. Why would it be? I was her husband. We trusted each other. The first folder I pulled was labeled Riverside Apartments, 2023. Standard inspection reports, code violations noted, remediation recommendations. I photographed every page with my phone, not sure what I was looking for, but following the same instinct that had made me check our phone records. The second folder made my hands go still. Riverside Apartments, private, was handwritten on the tab in Ashley's neat script. Inside were photographs, smoke detectors with their batteries removed, fire extinguishers moved from their marked locations, emergency exit signs unplugged. Each photo was dated and time-stamped. Below the photos were payment records. $50,000 deposited to an account I'd never seen, dated 2 weeks after the Riverside fire that killed 3 people last October. I'd read about that fire. Everyone in Denver had. Faulty wiring, they'd said. Smoke detectors that didn't activate. By the time residents realized what was happening, the stairwells were already filled with smoke. My wife had been the fire safety inspector for that building. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and photographed everything. Then I kept searching. Hartley Office Complex, private. More photos of disabled smoke detectors, blocked fire exits, tampered sprinkler systems. Payment record, $75,000, dated 1 week after the Hartley fire that destroyed an entire floor last June. Westwood Shopping Center, private. Memorial Medical Plaza, private. Skyline Condominiums, private. 5 buildings. 5 fires. Over $200,000 in payments, traced to an account under Ashley's maiden name. I sat on the floor of her office, surrounded by evidence that my wife wasn't just having an affair. She was systematically disabling fire safety systems so buildings would burn. The phone records suddenly made horrible sense. I pulled them up again, cross-referencing the dates. Every payment was preceded by a cluster of calls to that unknown number. The calls intensified in the days before each fire, then dropped off completely for weeks afterward. Her lover wasn't just her lover. He was her partner in arson for hire. I heard the garage door opener activate and scrambled to put everything back exactly as I'd found it. By the time Ashley walked through the door, I was standing in the kitchen, my phone full of photographs that could send her to prison for the rest of her life. She stopped when she saw me, her purse slipping from her shoulder. "Greg?" "I needed to pick up some clothes," I said. My voice sounded normal. 12 years of marriage, and I could still lie to her face as easily as she'd been lying to me. "Greg, please, we need to talk about yesterday. That text, I can explain." "Can you explain the phone records? 347 calls to the same number over 13 months? She went pale. "You went through our phone records?" "Shared account, Ashley. Everything's transparent, remember? That's what you always said." I watched her process this, saw her mind working through possible explanations. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." She opened her mouth, closed it. "I made a mistake. I've been seeing someone. But it's over now. I ended it last night after you didn't come home. I realized what I was risking, what I was throwing away." "Who is he?" "That doesn't matter. He doesn't matter." "Greg, please, we can fix this. 12 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children." "His name, Ashley." She hesitated too long. "A client. Someone I met through work. It was stupid and meaningless, and I'm so sorry." "Which client? Why does it matter? I'm telling you it's over." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of the Riverside payment record. "Is this the client you were seeing?" The color drained from her face completely. "Where did you get that?" "Your office. The filing cabinet you didn't bother locking because your husband trusted you." I swiped to the next photo. $50,000, 2 weeks after 3 people died in a fire at a building you'd just inspected. A building where every smoke detector mysteriously failed. "Greg, you don't understand." "Then help me understand. Help me understand why you have photographs of yourself disabling fire safety equipment. Help me understand why you've been paid over $200,000 by someone who seems very interested in buildings burning down after you inspect them." She was shaking now. "It's not like that. I wasn't. The photos are just documentation of violations I found." "Violations you found?" "The timestamps show you took these photos at night, Ashley. After hours. And they're not violations. They're sabotage. You removed those batteries. You unplugged those exit signs. You blocked those fire exits. I was documenting what the building owners had done. Stop. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. I'm a surgeon. I know what evidence looks like. I know what documentation looks like. These photos show you committing crimes that killed people. She sank into a kitchen chair, her hands covering her face. You can't tell anyone. Greg, please, the kids. The kids? Something cold settled in my chest. You're worried about the kids now? Not when you were disabling smoke detectors so buildings could burn? Not when 3 people died at Riverside because the alarms you sabotaged didn't go off. I didn't know anyone would die. He said they were insurance jobs, that the buildings would be empty. He said. Your lover said. I leaned against the counter, needing the support. What's his name, Ashley? She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. David Paulson. He owns a property management company. He was hiring me to inspect buildings, and then he approached me about making sure certain safety systems failed inspections. So he could burn them down for insurance money. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. The Riverside fire wasn't supposed to happen when people were there. Something went wrong. Something went wrong. 3 people died because you removed the batteries from smoke detectors. An elderly woman and 2 college students who couldn't get out because the emergency exit signs you unplugged left them wandering in the dark. I was shouting now. I never shouted. Ashley was crying, mascara running down her face. I know. God, Greg, I know. I've barely slept since Riverside. I told David I was done, but he said we had one more job, just one more, and then we could stop. One more. I felt sick. When? What? When is the next fire, Ashley? Which building did you sabotage? She wouldn't meet my eyes. The Parkview Apartments, on 7th Street. He's doing it tomorrow night. I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? Panic flooded her voice. Calling the fire marshal. She lunged across the kitchen, grabbing for my phone. No, Greg, please. I'll go to prison. The kids will lose their mother. I held the phone out of her reach. You should have thought about that before you started killing people for money. I didn't mean to kill anyone. Please, I'm begging you. We can figure this out together. I'll turn myself in. I'll cooperate. Just don't what? Don't save the people living at Parkview? Don't stop your boyfriend from committing arson tomorrow night? I stepped away from her. It's over, Ashley. Whatever we had, whatever I thought we had, it's gone. Greg. But I was already dialing. The fire marshal's office answered on the second ring, and I started talking. I pulled out my phone with hands that had steadied somewhere between Ashley's confession and this moment. The same hands that had held a scalpel steady through 4-hour surgeries now hovered over the keypad with absolute clarity. What are you doing? Ashley's voice cracked. I didn't answer. I was already dialing 911. Denver 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a planned arson, I said. Parkview Apartments on East Colfax. It's scheduled for tomorrow night. Ashley lunged for my phone. I stepped back, and she stumbled against the desk, knocking over a coffee mug that shattered on the hardwood floor. Sir, can you provide more details about this threat? My wife runs a fire safety consulting firm. She's been systematically disabling smoke detectors and fire suppression systems in buildings before they're burned for insurance fraud. She just told me Parkview Apartments is next, tomorrow night. The dispatcher's tone sharpened. What's your name and location, sir? Dr. Greg Matthews. I'm at 2847 Juniper Street. I have documentation, inspection reports, payment records, everything. Officers are being dispatched to your location. Stay on the line. Ashley was crying now, full-body sobs that shook her shoulders. Greg, please. The kids... The kids weren't in the Riverside apartments, I said. But 3 other people were. She flinched like I'd struck her. Sir? The dispatcher's voice pulled me back. Are you in any immediate danger? I looked at Ashley, collapsed against the desk with mascara running down her face. The woman I'd married 12 years ago, the mother of my children, a stranger who'd helped murder 3 people for money. No, I said. No immediate danger. Officers will arrive in approximately 6 minutes. Please remain where you are. They actually arrived in 4. 2 patrol officers, followed 10 minutes later by a fire investigator named Lieutenant Barnes, a compact woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She spent 2 hours in Ashley's office, photographing documents, bagging evidence, asking questions in a voice that never rose above conversational, but somehow made even me want to confess things I hadn't done. Mr. Paulson's property management company owns all 5 buildings? She asked Ashley for the 3rd time. Ashley nodded, her voice barely audible. Yes. And you were hired to conduct routine fire safety inspections? Yes. But instead of conducting legitimate inspections, you disabled the fire suppression systems and smoke detectors. I didn't disable everything, just enough that the fires would spread before anyone could respond effectively, Barnes finished. Her tone didn't change. Walk me through the Riverside Apartments inspection. I watched Ashley's face crumble. I disabled the main alarm panel, cut the connection to the monitoring service, removed batteries from the hallway smoke detectors on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The fire started on the 2nd floor, Barnes said. It wasn't a question. Yes. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on March 17th. I didn't know when, I just did the inspection 2 days before. David handled the actual... She couldn't finish. The actual arson, Barnes said, and the 3 victims were on the 3rd floor. Mrs. Cook, age 72, Mr. Williams, age 68, and Tyler Rogers, age 19. I hadn't known their names until that moment. Tyler Rogers? The same age as my nephew. Probably somebody's son, definitely somebody's child. Ashley made a sound like a wounded animal. Barnes turned to me. Dr. Matthews, I understand you discovered this information during a search of your wife's office? Yes, this morning. What prompted the search? I could have lied. Could have said I'd noticed irregularities in our finances or overheard a suspicious phone call. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the family group chat, the text message that had detonated my life 36 hours ago. Barnes read it without expression. I see. And you found these documents where? Filing cabinet, 3rd drawer. She kept everything. Inspection reports with handwritten notes about which systems she'd disabled, payment records from Paulson, even floor plans with her modifications marked. She kept physical records of felony arson conspiracy, Barnes said, almost to herself. People never cease to amaze me. They arrested Ashley at 3:47 p.m. I watched from the living room doorway as they read her rights, the same Miranda warning I'd heard 1,000 times on television but never thought would be recited in my own home. Ashley was still crying, mascara streaked and trembling, when they guided her into the back of the patrol car. Our neighbor Mrs. Patterson was standing in her yard, phone out, probably already texting the neighborhood watch group. By tomorrow, everyone would know. By next week, it would be in the papers. Lieutenant Barnes stayed behind, sitting across from me at the kitchen table where Ashley and I had eaten breakfast with our kids just yesterday morning. "We're executing a search warrant on Mr. Paulson's office and residence," she said. "Based on your wife's statement and the documentation you provided, we expect to find additional evidence. But I need you to understand something, Dr. Matthews." I waited. "This is going to be a federal case. Arson resulting in death, wire fraud, insurance fraud. The FBI will be involved. Your wife is facing life in prison. If she cooperates, testifies against Paulson, maybe 20 years. But either way," she paused, "your children are going to grow up with their mother in prison." I'd been holding that thought at arm's length since the moment I'd found the files. Now it hit me full force. Emma was 10. Tyler was 7. By the time Ashley got out, if she ever got out, they'd be adults. Middle-aged, maybe. "I know," I said. "There's something else." Barnes pulled out a photograph, slid it across the table. "Do you recognize this building?" It was a mid-rise apartment complex, maybe 8 stories, with brick facade and balconies. Looked like half the buildings in Denver. "No," I said. "Parkview Apartments. We've got units surrounding it now, and we're coordinating with the fire department to inspect the safety systems." "But Dr. Matthews, if your wife disabled those systems the way she did at Riverside, and if Paulson's already hired someone to start that fire..." She didn't finish. "How many people live there?" 147 units. Estimated 300 residents, give or take. 300 people who would have gone to sleep tomorrow night in a building with sabotaged fire safety systems. 300 people who might have died because my wife needed money, or thrills, or whatever the hell had driven her to this. "We'll prevent it," Barnes said. "But I wanted you to understand the scope. This isn't just about your marriage or your wife's affair. This is about a systematic conspiracy that could have killed dozens, maybe hundreds of people." I thought about the Riverside fire. 3 victims. Tyler Rogers, 19 years old. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Right now?" "Nothing. We have enough evidence to charge both your wife and Mr. Paulson, but eventually, you'll probably be called to testify about how you discovered the documents, what your wife told you. The defense will argue illegal search, spousal privilege, anything they can think of." "I understand." Barnes stood, collecting her notes. "One more thing. The media is going to be all over this. Fire safety inspector involved in arson conspiracy, multiple deaths, insurance fraud. It's going to be national news. You and your children need to prepare for that." After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen and tried to figure out how to tell Emma and Tyler that their mother wasn't coming home. I picked them up from Ashley's sister Rachel at 6 o'clock. Rachel knew something was wrong. The police had called her asking about the kids' whereabouts, but I'd asked her not to say anything until I could talk to them myself. "Daddy!" Tyler launched himself at my legs the moment I walked in. Emma was more reserved, hanging back with that preteen awareness that something was off. "Where's Mom?" "Let's go home and talk," I said. The drive back was 15 minutes of Tyler chattering about his day at school, while Emma stared out the window, silent. I kept rehearsing what I'd say, but every version sounded impossible. "Your mother helped burn down buildings. Your mother helped kill people. Your mother is going to prison." How do you tell that to a 10-year-old? How do you tell that to anyone? We pulled into the driveway. Mrs. Patterson was still outside, pretending to garden while obviously watching our house. I guided the kids inside, sat them down on the couch. "Is Mom okay?" Emma asked immediately. She's in trouble," I said. Serious trouble. She did some things at work that were against the law and she's been arrested. Tyler's face crumpled. Arrested like bad guys? Yes, buddy. But Mom's not a bad guy. Emma was staring at me with Ashley's eyes. What did she do? I took a breath. She was helping someone burn down buildings. People got hurt. People died. The silence that followed felt like it lasted hours. The arraignment was set for Thursday morning. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching Ashley shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. She'd aged a decade in 3 days. Her hair hung limp, and the purple circles under her eyes looked like bruises. She didn't look at me. David Paulson came in next, his expensive suit replaced with the same orange uniform. His lawyer, some slick type in a $3,000 suit, whispered urgently in his ear. Paulson nodded, his jaw tight. The judge read the charges. 3 counts of first-degree murder, multiple counts of arson, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. The list went on for what felt like an eternity. Ashley's lawyer, a public defender who looked barely out of law school, requested bail. Your Honor, Mrs. Matthews has no prior criminal record and strong ties to the community. She has 2 young children who need their mother. Mrs. Matthews is charged with 3 counts of murder in the first degree, the judge interrupted, her voice flat. Her alleged actions directly resulted in the deaths of 3 people and endangered hundreds more. Bail is denied. Ashley's shoulders sagged. The public defender tried again with Paulson, arguing about his business ties and community standing. The judge denied that too. I left before they were let out. I couldn't watch Ashley look at me with those desperate, pleading eyes. Not after what she'd done. The FBI came to the house that afternoon. 2 agents, Special Agent Rebecca Walsh and Special Agent James Porter, sat in my living room drinking coffee while Emma and Tyler were at my parents' place. We need to understand the full scope of the operation, Walsh said. She was maybe 40, with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. You've given us the financial records and the ledger, but we need to know everything you found, everything she said. I walked them through it again. The disabled smoke detectors, the systematic sabotage, the payment schedule, Ashley's confession about the planned Parkview fire. Did she mention any other properties? Porter asked. He was younger, mid-30s, with the kind of intense focus that reminded me of surgical residents. No, just Parkview. But there were 6 entries in the ledger. 5 completed, 1 pending. Walsh made a note. We're going through Paulson's property management company records now. We've identified the 5 buildings. All had fires in the past 18 months. All had insurance claims filed. How much? I asked. Total? Just over $4 million. Walsh looked up from her notepad. The insurance companies are cooperating fully. They want prosecutions. $4 million. 3 people dead. For $4 million. There's something else, Porter said. We found communications between Paulson and someone at Mountain West Insurance. We think there might be an inside person helping approve claims quickly without thorough investigation. The scope kept expanding. What I'd thought was Ashley and Paulson had tentacles reaching into insurance companies, property management. Who knew where else? Will she testify? I asked. Against Paulson? Walsh and Porter exchanged a look. Her lawyer approached us yesterday, Walsh said carefully. She's willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence, but the DA hasn't decided whether to offer a deal. 3 people are dead, Dr. Matthews. The public wants accountability. I understood that. I wanted accountability too. But some small, traitorous part of me, the part that remembered 12 years of marriage, 2 children, Sunday morning pancakes, wanted Ashley to have a chance at eventually coming home. I hated that part of myself. The media circus started Friday morning. I woke up to news vans parked on my street. My phone had 63 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I called my attorney, Michael Foster, at 7 a.m. "Don't talk to anyone," he said immediately. "Not the press, not the neighbors, not anyone. Refer all questions to me." "They're on my lawn, Michael." "I'll handle it. Get the kids and go somewhere else for a few days. Your parents' place, a hotel, anywhere but there." I packed bags for Emma and Tyler. My mother had already called twice, asking when we were coming. She'd seen the news. Getting to my car required running a gauntlet of reporters shouting questions. "Dr. Matthews, did you suspect your wife? How long was the affair going on? Did you know about the arson scheme?" I kept my head down and drove. Emma called from my parents' house. "Dad, there are people at school asking about Mom. Mrs. Peterson said I could stay in the office during recess." She was 10 years old. 10 years old and hiding in the principal's office because her mother was a murderer. "I'm coming to get you and Tyler," I said. "We're going to Grandma's for a while." "Is Mom coming home?" The question hit like a punch to the chest. "No, sweetie, Mom's not coming home for a long time." Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "Did she really hurt those people?" I pulled over. I couldn't drive and have this conversation. "Yes," I said. "She did. I'm so sorry, Emma." More silence. Then, "Tyler doesn't understand. He keeps asking when Mom's coming to his soccer game." "I know. We'll figure it out together, okay?" "Okay." Her voice was so small. The federal trial was set for 6 months out. The state charges would come after. Michael explained that the feds wanted first crack because of the interstate insurance fraud. Paulson's company operated in Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. I met with the prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Blake, in her office downtown. She was mid-40s with the kind of sharp intelligence that reminded me of the best surgeons I'd trained with. "I want you to understand what we're dealing with," she said, spreading files across her desk. "This isn't just your wife and Paulson. We've identified the insurance adjuster, a man named Kevin Wright who was fast-tracking claims in exchange for kickbacks. We're also looking at 2 building inspectors who may have been taking bribes to overlook code violations." The conspiracy had layers I hadn't imagined. "How many buildings total?" I asked. "We've confirmed 7 fires linked to Paulson's properties. Your wife's involvement in 5 of them. The other 2 are still under investigation." 7 fires. How many people had been endangered? How many had lost everything? "The families of the victims want to meet you," Blake said carefully. "They want to thank you for coming forward." I felt sick. I didn't do anything heroic, "You prevented another fire. You saved lives at Parkview Apartments." Blake's expression softened slightly. "I know this is hard, but you did the right thing." The right thing. I'd destroyed my children's lives, put their mother in prison, made our family the subject of national news coverage. The right thing felt like ashes in my mouth. I met Elizabeth Harper on a Tuesday afternoon at a coffee shop in Boulder. She was the daughter of Robert Harper, the 68-year-old man who died in the Riverside Apartments fire. She'd asked to meet through the victim services coordinator. She was maybe 35, with dark hair and her father's eyes. I'd seen his photo in the news coverage. "I wanted to say thank you," she said after we'd sat down, "for stopping them." for making sure no one else's father died like mine did. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry for your loss. He was a veteran, served in Vietnam, survived all that just to die because some woman disabled the smoke detector for money. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook around her coffee cup. Do you know what the firefighters told me? He probably never woke up. The smoke got him in his sleep. I thought about Ashley's ledger. $500 per building. Robert Harper's life was worth $500 to my wife. I hope she rots in prison, Elizabeth said quietly. I hope every single day she thinks about what she did. I couldn't disagree. That night, I sat in my parents' guest room and opened my laptop. I'd been avoiding the news coverage, but I needed to understand what the world was seeing. The headlines were brutal. Fire inspector's deadly scheme. 3 dead in arson for hire plot. Trusted safety expert. Betrayed public trust. Disabled life-saving equipment. Inside the fire, safety scandal that killed 3. I clicked on one article. It detailed Ashley's career, her credentials, her reputation as a thorough inspector. It quoted building owners who'd trusted her recommendations, who'd paid her to keep their properties safe. The comments section was worse. Thousands of people calling for the death penalty, for life without parole, for Ashley to suffer the way her victims had suffered. I closed the laptop. Downstairs, I could hear Emma and Tyler watching television with my parents. Normal sounds. A normal evening. Except nothing was normal anymore, and it never would be again. I was standing in the kitchen when Jennifer Blake called. 3 weeks had passed since Ashley's arrest. 3 weeks of living in a house that felt like a crime scene, even though nothing had been touched. Emma and Tyler were at school, their first week back after I'd kept them home during the initial media frenzy. We have a problem, Jennifer said without preamble. Ashley's attorney is pushing hard for a plea deal. I set down my coffee mug. What kind of deal? 15 years in exchange for testimony against Paulson and the others. She'd be eligible for parole in 10. The number hit me like a physical blow. 10 years. Emma would be 20. Tyler, 17. 3 people died because she disabled those smoke detectors. I know, Jennifer's voice was tight. But her attorney is arguing diminished capacity, coercion by Paulson, emotional manipulation. They're painting her as a victim who got in over her head. That's garbage. I walked to the window overlooking our backyard. Ashley's garden gnomes still stood in neat rows along the fence. She'd arranged them last month, 2 days before the Riverside fire. I found the payment records. She took $80,000 for that job alone. The defense is claiming Paulson controlled the finances, that she never saw most of the money. Papers rustled on Jennifer's end. They've got a forensic accountant who will testify that the bulk of the payments went to offshore accounts in Paulson's name. I thought about the envelope I'd found in Ashley's desk drawer. $20,000 in cash, bundled in hundreds, tucked behind her yoga magazines. I'd photographed it before turning it over to the FBI. What do you need from me? I asked. I need you to be prepared for this to go to trial. The defense is going to argue that Ashley was manipulated, that she didn't understand the consequences of her actions. They'll use your marriage, your career, everything to paint a picture of a neglected wife who fell under the influence of a predatory criminal. Predatory criminal she was sleeping with. Yes, well, Jennifer paused. The affair actually helps their narrative. Paulson as the charismatic manipulator, Ashley as the vulnerable target. It's textbook defense strategy. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. Parent-teacher conference request. I'd missed 2 already. When do you need an answer? I asked. The preliminary hearing is in 4 days. The judge will want to know if we're accepting the plea or moving forward with prosecution. Jennifer's tone softened slightly. I should tell you, Paulson's attorney approached us yesterday with a counter-offer. He'll testify against Ashley, claim she was the mastermind, in exchange for 20 years. I almost laughed. So they're both blaming each other. That's usually how these things work. More papers rustling. But here's what matters. We have Ashley's handwriting on inspection reports she falsified. We have her signature on safety certificates for buildings she knew were compromised. And we have the text messages between her and Paulson discussing the Parkview job. The one that didn't happen. Attempted arson still carries serious penalties, especially when it involves a building with 300 residents. Jennifer cleared her throat. I'm recommending we reject the plea and go to trial. But I need you to understand what that means. Full media coverage. Your children's names in the press. Every detail of your marriage examined in open court. I thought about Tyler asking me last night why Mommy couldn't come home. He was 7. He thought his mother was sick, staying at a hospital. Emma knew more. She'd heard the news reports before I could stop her. But she hadn't asked questions yet. She just went quiet whenever anyone mentioned Ashley's name. Do it, I said. Take it to trial. Jennifer was silent for a moment. You're sure? Those people died because my wife disabled their smoke detectors so a building could burn. Mrs. Cook's daughter came to see me last week. Did I tell you that? No. She wanted to know if I knew. If I had any idea what Ashley was doing. I closed my eyes against the memory of Janet Cook's face, the careful control in her voice. Her mother burned to death in her apartment because the smoke detector Ashley was supposed to inspect had its batteries removed. 10 years isn't enough. All right, Jennifer's voice turned brisk, professional. I'll file our response today. Preliminary hearing is Thursday at 9. You don't need to be there, but the press will be looking for you. I'll be there. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time. The house was too quiet. I'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital. Dr. Williams had insisted after I nearly contaminated a surgical field by forgetting to change gloves between procedures. You're not present, she'd said gently. And in our work, that gets people killed. She was right. I couldn't focus, couldn't sleep. Kept seeing Ashley's face in the interrogation room, the way she'd looked at me when the FBI agents led her away. Not apologetic, not remorseful, just calculating. Like she was already working out her defense strategy. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I'd stopped answering those after the third reporter tracked down my cell, but something made me pick up this time. Dr. Matthews? A woman's voice, older, uncertain. Yes? This is Margaret Paulson, David's mother. I sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. I know I shouldn't be calling you, she continued quickly. My attorney said not to make contact, but I needed you to hear this from me. David is lying about your wife. Mrs. Paulson? He's claiming she planned everything, that he was just following her instructions. But that's not true. I've known my son for 43 years, Dr. Matthews. I know what he's capable of. Her voice cracked. Those fires were his idea, all of them. He's been running insurance scams since he was in his 20s. Ashley was just... She was just the latest person he pulled into his schemes. I should have hung up, should have called Jennifer immediately. But something in Margaret Paulson's voice kept me listening. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because 3 people died. Because my son is a monster and I can't protect him anymore. She was crying now. I have documents, financial records David kept in my basement. I didn't know what they were until the FBI came. He used my address for some of his shell companies. Thought I was too old to notice. You need to call the FBI. I did. Agent Walsh came yesterday. But I wanted you to know that your wife, she's not innocent. I'm not saying that. But David is the one who should spend the rest of his life in prison, not her. After she hung up, I sat staring at my phone. The kitchen clock ticked toward noon. I needed to pick up the kids in 3 hours. Needed to figure out what to make for dinner, help Tyler with his spelling homework, sign Emma's permission slip for the field trip she probably wouldn't want to go on because the other parents would whisper. My laptop was still on the counter where I'd left it that morning. I opened it and pulled up the folder I'd created 3 weeks ago. Evidence. Inside were copies of everything I'd given to the FBI. Ashley's falsified inspection reports, the payment ledgers, the photographs of disabled smoke detectors I'd found on her work tablet, and the text messages. I scrolled through them again, even though I'd memorized most of them by now. Ashley and Paulson discussing buildings, timing, payment schedules, but also other messages, personal ones. Paulson telling Ashley she was beautiful, brilliant, wasted on a husband who didn't appreciate her. Ashley responding that she'd never felt so alive, so seen. The ones that still twisted something in my chest were from early in their relationship, before the fires started. Just an affair, nothing criminal yet. Ashley texting Paulson after one of my long shifts. He came home and went straight to his study. Didn't even ask about my day. I remembered that night. Mrs. Patterson's triple bypass had developed complications. I'd spent 14 hours in surgery, then another 6 in the ICU making sure she stabilized. When I got home at midnight, I'd been dead on my feet. Ashley had been asleep on the couch. I'd covered her with a blanket and gone to my study to finish my surgical notes. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in mid-February, 6 weeks after Ashley's arrest. I'd been living in the Hilton for 43 days, moving between my room and the hospital in a rhythm that had become almost comfortable in its numbness. Jennifer Blake called me Tuesday evening while I was reviewing surgical notes. Margaret Paulson's documents, she said without preamble. We've finished analyzing them. I set down my pen. And? They're comprehensive. 23 months of financial records, emails, and recordings. Mrs. Paulson apparently became suspicious of her son's sudden wealth and started documenting everything she could access. Recordings? She installed monitoring software on a laptop she gave him as a gift. Captured video calls between David and Ashley dating back 19 months. Jennifer paused. Greg, these recordings change everything. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How? They show Ashley initiating the scheme. The first recorded conversation is from August 3 years ago. She approached David with the concept fully formed. Disable fire safety systems in buildings his company managed, arrange fires, split the insurance payouts. She had building access codes, inspection schedules, everything mapped out. I stared at the hotel wall, processing. 3 years ago, Emma had just turned 7. Tyler was 4. I'd been planning our anniversary trip to Maui. David was hesitant initially, Jennifer continued. The recordings show Ashley convincing him, reassuring him about her ability to bypass safety systems without detection. She used technical language, suppression system vulnerabilities, detector blind spots, inspection protocol gaps. This was her expertise. So the defense narrative about her being manipulated, is contradicted by Margaret's evidence. We're sharing it with the defense teams tomorrow. I wanted you to hear it first." After she hung up, I sat in the darkening room for a long time. I'd known Ashley was guilty. I'd seen the evidence in her office, heard her desperate justifications during those 17 seconds before I ended the call. But knowing she'd conceived this scheme, that she'd methodically planned to compromise building safety for money, that she'd done this while kissing our children goodnight, while lying beside me discussing Emma's soccer schedule. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Williams. "Checking in. You doing okay?" "Fine," I typed back. "Surgery schedule for tomorrow?" "2 valve replacements, 1 bypass." "Greg, you don't have to." "I'll be there." Work was the only thing that made sense anymore. In the OR, problems had solutions. Hearts could be repaired. Outcomes followed logically from actions. The preliminary hearing was held in Judge Raymond Foster's courtroom, a wood-paneled space that smelled of furniture polish and old law books. I sat in the gallery behind Jennifer Blake, watching as Ashley and David were led in separately. Ashley had lost weight. Her fire inspector's confidence had been replaced by something brittle and desperate. She wore a navy suit that hung loose on her frame. She didn't look at me. David Paulson looked worse. His expensive clothes couldn't hide the prison pallor or the fear in his eyes when he glanced toward where his mother sat, stone-faced, in the front row. Judge Foster was a thin woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no patience for theatrics. She reviewed the charges methodically. 3 counts of murder in the 2nd degree, 7 counts of arson, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, criminal negligence causing death, tampering with fire safety equipment. "The prosecution may present its preliminary evidence," she said. Jennifer stood. "Your Honor, the state has extensive documentation of a conspiracy between the defendants to systematically disable fire safety systems in 7 buildings over a period of 23 months, resulting in insurance fraud exceeding $4 million and the deaths of 3 individuals in the Riverside Apartments fire." She presented the evidence in clinical detail. Payment records showing transfers from Paulson's accounts to Ashley's business. Building access logs showing Ashley entering properties hours before fires. Disabled smoke detector records matching Ashley's inspection reports. Text messages coordinating timing. Then she introduced Margaret Paulson's recordings. The state has obtained video recordings of conversations between the defendants spanning 19 months, beginning in August 3 years ago. These recordings show Ms. Matthews initiating the conspiracy and providing technical expertise to execute it. Ashley's attorney, Robert Cook, I'd learned his name from the court filings, stood immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. These recordings were obtained without the defendant's knowledge or consent. The legality is questionable." "The recordings were made by Margaret Paulson on a device she owned and provided to her son," Jennifer countered. "Colorado is a one-party consent state. Mrs. Paulson consented to recording conversations on her own property." Judge Foster considered. "I'll allow the recordings as preliminary evidence. Their admissibility at trial can be challenged through appropriate motions." Jennifer played 3 excerpts. The courtroom audio system made Ashley's voice tinny but recognizable. The first recording showed her and David in what appeared to be a coffee shop, the laptop camera capturing them at an angle. Ashley was animated, leaning forward. "The beauty is that I'm already in these buildings legitimately," her recorded voice said. "I conduct the inspections. I have access codes. I can disable detectors in specific units, create blind spots in the suppression systems. By the time anyone realizes the equipment failed, the fire investigation will show faulty maintenance, not sabotage. David's voice, uncertain. But people could get hurt. Not if we're careful about timing. Late night, buildings with good evacuation routes, fires contained to unoccupied units. The insurance pays out, your company gets the reconstruction contract, we split the proceeds. It's risk management, David. Calculated risk. The second recording was from 6 months later. They were in a car, discussing the third fire. The Riverside building worries me, David said. It's older, wood frame construction. Fire could spread faster. Which is why the payout is bigger, Ashley replied. $200,000 for you, another $100 for me after the reconstruction contract. We've done this twice successfully. We know what we're doing. The third recording was from 2 months ago, shortly before the Riverside fire. I've disabled the hall detectors on floors 2 and 3, Ashley's voice said. The suppression system valve is already compromised from my last inspection. I documented it as scheduled maintenance. Fire starts in Unit 2C around 2 a.m. Buildings mostly asleep, but the stairwells are clear. 90 seconds to evacuation alarm, plenty of time. You're sure about the timing? I've mapped it 3 times. Trust me. Judge Foster's expression remained neutral, but I saw her fingers tighten on her pen. When the recordings finished, the courtroom was silent. David's attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Mills, stood. Your Honor, these recordings show conversations between 2 individuals engaged in criminal conspiracy. They don't establish which party initiated or controlled that conspiracy. They show Ms. Matthews providing technical expertise and specific methodology, Jennifer said. They show her dismissing safety concerns. They show her calculating financial returns while planning to compromise fire safety systems protecting hundreds of residents. Judge Foster looked at the defense table. Does either defendant wish to make a statement? Robert Cook stood. Your Honor, Ms. Matthews maintains that she was manipulated into this conspiracy through emotional coercion and— I'd like to hear from Ms. Matthews directly, the judge interrupted. Ashley stood slowly. Her voice was barely audible. Your Honor, I made terrible mistakes. I was involved in something I should never have been part of. But I never intended for anyone to get hurt. You thought disabling smoke detectors in occupied buildings wouldn't hurt anyone? Judge Foster's voice was cold. You're a fire safety professional, Ms. Matthews. You knew exactly what you were doing. Ashley's face crumpled. She sat down. Judge Foster reviewed her notes. Based on the preliminary evidence, I find sufficient cause to bind both defendants over for trial on all charges. Bail is denied. Trial is scheduled for May 15th. The gavel fell. I left the courthouse through a side exit, avoiding the media clustered at the front entrance. The February air was sharp and clean, cutting through the stale courtroom atmosphere. My phone rang as I reached the parking garage. Emma. Dad? Her voice was small. Grandma said Mom was in court today. I leaned against my car, closing my eyes. Ashley's parents had taken the children while I sorted out living arrangements. I'd been avoiding this conversation for 6 weeks. Yeah, sweetheart, she was. Is she coming home? The question hit like a surgical blade, precise and devastating. No, Emma, she's not coming home. Silence on the line. Then, quietly, because of the fires? You know about the fires? Kids at school talk. They say Mom killed people. Her voice broke. Did she, Dad? I slid down to sit on the cold garage floor, my back against the car door. Yeah, Emma, she did. I heard her crying. and there was nothing I could do. No surgery could fix this. No procedure could repair what Ashley had broken. "I want to come home," Emma whispered. "I'm working on that, sweetheart. I'm finding us a new place. Somewhere good. Somewhere safe." "When?" "Soon, I promise." After we hung up, I sat in the parking garage for another 20 minutes, watching my breath fog in the cold air. Then I drove back to the hospital. I had a valve replacement scheduled for 3 o'clock, and in the OR at least, I still knew how to fix things. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Ashley was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 45 years without possibility of parole. David Paulson got life. The insurance adjuster took a plea deal for 20 years. 2 building inspectors lost their licenses and served 18 months each. I didn't attend the sentencing. I'd already heard everything I needed to hear. 5 years later, I'm standing in the kitchen of our house in Boulder, a modest 3-bedroom ranch that Emma picked out because it had a backyard big enough for Tyler's soccer practice. The morning sun cuts through the window over the sink, illuminating the coffee maker gurgling through its cycle. Emma is 15 now, tall and serious, with Ashley's eyes but none of her mother's capacity for deception. She's at the kitchen table working on calculus homework, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Tyler, 12, is upstairs getting ready for school, his music bleeding through the ceiling. "Dad, can you check this derivative?" Emma asks, sliding her notebook across the table. I review her work while pouring coffee. "Your chain rule application is wrong in step 3. She frowns, recalculates, then nods. "Got it." We don't talk about Ashley much anymore. Emma went to therapy for 2 years. Dr. Sarah Brennan, a child psychologist who specialized in parental incarceration. Tyler went for 18 months. They've both adjusted as well as could be expected when your mother is serving 45 years for murder. Ashley writes letters. 1 per month, addressed to the children. I read them first, check in for manipulation or inappropriate content. Most are benign, asking about school, sharing prison library book recommendations, apologizing in ways that have become formulaic through repetition. Emma reads hers sometimes. Tyler stopped opening his after the first year. I never responded to the 3 letters Ashley sent me. The first was 17 pages of justification and blame. The second was shorter, angrier, accusing me of destroying our family. The third, arriving 4 years after her conviction, was different. A simple apology acknowledging what she'd done, the lives she'd taken, the family she'd broken. I filed it with the others in a box in my closet that the children don't know exists. "Tyler," I call up the stairs. 5 minutes. Thundering footsteps, then he appears in basketball shorts and a Nuggets jersey, backpack slung over one shoulder. He's gotten tall, almost to my shoulder now, with my build and my tendency to forget things when he's focused on something else. "Can Matt come over after practice?" he asks, grabbing a granola bar. "Sure, I'll be home by 6. Normal conversation, normal morning. We've built this normalcy carefully, brick by brick, over 5 years of therapy and honest conversations and learning to trust again. I returned to surgery 3 months after Ashley's arrest. Dr. Williams watched me like a hawk for the first 6 months, but eventually I proved I could compartmentalize, could leave the wreckage of my personal life outside the OR. I'm department head now, training the next generation of cardiovascular surgeons, teaching them that steady hands and clear minds save lives. The Riverside Apartments families settled their civil suit against Ashley's insurance company for an undisclosed amount. Elizabeth Harper used her portion to establish a fire safety foundation that provides free smoke detectors and safety education to low-income housing. She invited me to serve on the board. I declined. My connection to the case made it inappropriate, but I donate annually in her father's name. Margaret Paulson died 2 years ago. Her testimony helped convict her son, and the guilt apparently consumed her. She left her estate to the victim families, every penny. Her funeral was small. I sent flowers. The Parkview apartment still stands, its safety systems intact. 300 people lived there, most unaware how close they came to disaster. Sometimes I drive past it on my way home from the hospital, and I think about alternate timelines, the one where I didn't check that family group chat, where Ashley's message went unnoticed, where those buildings burned and those people died. But that's not what happened. I saw the message. I made the call. I chose to act. Dad? Emma's voice pulls me back to the present. You okay? Yeah, sweetheart. Just thinking. She studies me with those two knowing eyes. About Mom? I could lie, but we don't do that in this house. Not anymore. A little. She nods, returns to her calculus. Tyler grabs his backpack, and we head out to the car, our morning routine as practiced as any surgical procedure. At the hospital, between a mitral valve repair and a coronary bypass, I check my phone. There's an email from Robert Harper's daughter, Elizabeth, with a link to a news article. I click it during my lunch break. Fire Safety Foundation installs 10,000th smoke detector. The article shows Elizabeth and her team working in an apartment complex in Denver, installing detectors and teaching families about fire safety. 3 people died because my wife disabled their smoke alarms. Now thousands of people are safer because Elizabeth turned her grief into action. There's a philosophy in surgery. You can't undo the damage. You can only repair what remains and prevent future harm. You acknowledge the injury, you clean the wound, you reconstruct what's possible, and you move forward. That's what we've done. Emma, Tyler, and me. We acknowledge the injury Ashley caused, to her victims, to our family, to the basic trust that holds society together. We've cleaned the wound through therapy and honest conversation and refusing to make excuses for the inexcusable. We're reconstructing what's possible, a family built on truth instead of lies, on accountability instead of manipulation. Some things can't be fixed. Ashley will die in prison. 3 people are dead because she valued money over human life. Those are permanent damages, irreversible injuries. But some things can be saved. 2 children who learned that doing the right thing matters more than protecting the people you love when they've done wrong. A surgeon who learned that the steady hands required in the OR are the same ones needed to make impossible choices in life. A family that learned trust must be earned, not assumed. I finish my coffee and head back to the surgical wing. Mr. Peterson is waiting for his bypass, trusting me with his life because I've earned that trust through years of competent, honest work. His wife is in the waiting room, anxious but confident that I'll do everything possible to bring her husband through safely. That's the lesson, I think, scrubbing in for the afternoon's first procedure. Trust is built through consistent action, through doing the right thing even when it costs you everything. It's destroyed through betrayal, through choosing convenience over conscience, through valuing personal gain over human life. Ashley made her choices. I made mine. And every day, I wake up and make them again, choosing honesty over deception, accountability over excuses, the hard right over the easy wrong. The surgical lights come on. I take my position. The work begins. Some things break beyond repair, but what remains can be built into something stronger, something true, something worth saving. That's enough. It has to be.